Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how
He's alive!
Welcome to Where the Weird Ones Are.
Every time I speak, I want the truth to come out.
Powerful figures in Hollywood as well as powerful politicians who are in fact not human. They're reptiles or they're lizards or perhaps extraterrestrials.
I don't think it is a human. I think it's a Sasquatch.
Go ahead and run. Run home and cry to mama.
Let's get weird.
What's up, you fucking weirdos? Welcome to another episode of Where the Weird Ones Are. My name is Kevin, but you probably already knew that, and if you didn't, now you do. Today's episode is with Ashley Hilt. She is a ufologist and a cryptozoologist. I was actually supposed to see her speak at an event in Pennsylvania called Squonkapalooza, which many of you know that I had attended. So I ended up messaging her. We talked for a little bit, and we decided that she was going to come on and share with us some of her experiences and things that she's up to. So she's writing a book and working on a documentary on the Mothman. So very interesting. So hopefully, as soon as I know when she knows when it's all coming out, I think she says in this episode that she's thinking that the book is going to come out first. So with that being said, just keep your eyes peeled. I'll try to update you everybody on probably through Instagram and Facebook. And I'll probably mention it on one of the intros too, whatever episode is coming out that week. But so I just got into Instagram threads. Not really sure like what that's about. It's very weird and random. It's they just keep coming out with apps upon apps for all this like I don't know. It almost looks like a Twitter kind of thing. And I don't know. It's weird, but I'm on it. And so if anybody's interested in following my Instagram thread, which is I believe it's still where underscore the weird ones are, just like the Instagram handle. So if you're interested in chatting with me on that, I would try and chat with you. I'm also on Discord. The server is weirdos only, so if you want to get in contact with me on that, we can talk about weird shit too on there. Other than that, the Instagram and Facebook and the email. So email where the weird ones are at gmail.com. Those are also ways to get a hold of me if you want to talk about weird shit. More privately, I guess, where it's just you and I. And if you want to be on the show, if you want to be featured on the show, tell your stories, talk conspiracies, I'm down for whatever. So also, I think I've been talking about, making a Patreon, because I didn't want to make it any of you, I didn't want to make any, have the listeners like pay me to, you know, to talk, but I guess it would be helpful. I don't know. Everybody keeps telling me to do it, so I'm currently working on one. And they give you an option for like a bunch of tiers. I think I'm just gonna make one tier, and it's gonna be the bonus episodes that I do randomly sometimes. I think I'm just gonna put the bonus episodes as like Patreon episodes. Conspiracy Tuesdays and the regular episodes will probably are gonna still be free. But with the Patreon, I think probably just do like without the ads. Um, and then the bonus episodes, and I might do a bonus podcast with the Patreon, and then probably a merch store discount and stuff. I don't know. But if you're listening to this and you think it's a good idea, I guess just let me know if it would be a good idea. um, I feel weird about I don't know. I just feel weird making people pay me for talking to people, I guess, and talking in general. Um, but anywho, so I'm not sure when it comes out, but I will be featured on the confessionals. I just recorded with Tony the other day. And a wicked cool guy. So if you don't know the Confessionals podcast, I highly recommend it. He's been doing it for a long time. He also does documentaries and all that shit. So check out his documentaries. You can find that through Merkle Media. I don't know if he's exclusively YouTube with the documentaries or if he's like literally producing them himself. Like, you know what I mean, like on DVD or something like that. But I think you can find it on his website too. Anyways, just go to his website or whatever, and you'll probably figure it out. But with that being said, I am currently trying to do my own convention. I would like to do it outside, so it would be like a festival, like a craft fair and shit. You got all the vendors and then have speakers. I already have a couple people that are interested in speaking, so um, just finding a venue is a lot harder than I thought it would be. So. But I'm looking to do it in towards like the end of August of 2024. So, but I'll keep you guys posted as that goes. I think I'm just gonna have to put myself out there for like people in the community a little bit more. Probably go to the town hall and see if I can do something at a park or something. I don't know. What else is there? Well, we'll do some shout outs. So, obviously, you guys know that I love this podcast. I talk about her in almost every episode now. So, if you have not checked out her podcast yet, you are missing the fuck out. And that would be One Nothing Podcast. Last I checked, she is number one on Good Pods rating. Goodpods.com. You go in the true crime category, she is number one, beating out NBC Dateline, and Last House on the Left, which I don't really think Last House on the Left is all that great, anyways. But that's just me. That's my perspective. I don't care to listen to that one. It's just a personal preference. No like shade or hate or anything like that. It's just I don't care to listen to it. But it's very popular. They got comics. The comics are pretty cool though. Yeah, so out she's outranked all the top true crime podcasts right now. So I believe you should probably go check it out if you haven't. You're obviously missing out. Um, and then middle aged and creeped out. They gave me a really nice shout out on their. I think it's 100. I don't remember the number, but it's a mini episode. So if you don't listen to that podcast, I also highly recommend that one as well. They're three middle-aged men talking about shit that creeps them out. So um, go check them out. Go check them out. I listen to them and I enjoy it. So I think you will too, especially if you like listening to this. And then Tommy and Cullum's Let's Get Freaky, Shane's Inquiries of Our Reality, um, and Chris's Conspire a Theory. So I think that's about it. I have a website. It's not that great right at the moment, but I am going to try and make it better as time goes on, but it is out there. You want some merch? It's etsy.com/shop/where the weird ones. The website is where the weird ones are podcast at where the weird ones are podcast.com. So, anywho, with that being said, I hope you have a good day. I hope you have a good night, whatever time you decide to listen to this. And without further ado, let's get into it.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Let's get weird. Let's get weird. Let's get weird. Let's get weird. Weird. Get weird.
Do you need healing crystals? Do you need to get your chakras aligned and heal your mind, body, and soul? You need to check yourself and become one with the universe once again. Then I suggest you head on over to www.etsy.com/shop/heal with Christina. That's where you'll find all sorts of custom designed crystals for your healing and visual pleasure. I promise you, you won't be disappointed with the plethora of things you can choose from. Necklaces, healing crystals, all sorts of wire type things and such. Christina is a good friend of mine and she enjoys helping people, so please help her out by checking out her shop. And at checkout, please use code WEIRD125 for a 25% off discount. That is www.etsy.com/shop/heal with Christina. And remember, friends, use my coupon code WEIRD125. That is a capital W on that, so you can get your 25% off discount. I promise you, you won't be disappointed in checking this out. Well, my friends, when you do, tell Christina I said hi. Stay weird, my friends. So, Ashley, it is really nice to see you and hear you. Last time we tried this, I couldn't do either one of them.
Right.
Computer updates and whatnot. So I wanted to see you speak at the Squonkapalooza. Unfortunately, I completely missed it. I was walking around looking at all the shops. There was a lot of cool shit there, actually. There was a lot of vendors at this place, and you weren't there physically, so we didn't get to connect after you were speaking anyway. So I literally, after I realized that I missed you speak, I ended up messaging you that right then and there. But if you don't mind giving the people, however many, 2, maybe 3 people that listen to this podcast, let them know a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do.
Yeah, I'll share with both of you right now. So my name's Ashley Hilt. I'm a Fortean investigator. What does Fortean mean? Well, it means that I do all of it, folks. I do cryptozoology and ufology and the paranormal and the occult and basically anything and everything odd. I study, research, and investigate. But the caveat to that is that we don't get paid to do those things. So I have to run a podcast in order to make anything at all off of it. So I am the host of the On Wednesdays We Talk Weird podcast. And then I do, I don't know, everything else, I guess, bunch of odds and ends, content creation, I guess, is the general idea. So that's the gist.
Nice. So, what was it that you talked about at the Squonkapalooza?
Yeah, so Squonkapalooza is a fan favorite. I talked about the Mothman. That happens to be something that a lot of people know me for because I am, I hate to say it, but writing a book and making a documentary about the topic. I've been investigating the Mothman. It's one of the first things that I've researched, which got me into doing this as my job. So I pretty much give, a Cliff Notes version of the talk itself is just to kind of go over, I like to give everything in a nice timeline format. I think it makes it easy for people to understand. So of course I go over the flap in 66 from 67 in the Ohio River area, just hit the main talking points about who the key players are and what they did, what they experienced. Then I kind of will get into a little bit about the Chicago Mothman sightings, which I have a very controversial opinion on. I'll give my own Mothman encounter, and then I open the floor for questions. And by that point, I've fried people's brains with all the information. I think they get a little overwhelmed. So,
Well, have you ever been to the Cryptozoology Museum up here in Portland, Maine?
not yet, unfortunately.
Okay, because Lauren Coleman has like a wall dedicated to Mothman.
Oh,
And I think in one of the plaques that he has, it says he has a statue of a German Shepherd as well. It says, and then this huge ass like, I think it's like felt, like the arts and craft felt, but it's fucking huge, and it's the Mothman, and he's just like standing there, and then there's a statue of a German Shepherd dog next to him. And supposedly, I guess the German Shepherd was like the first victim of the Mothman, and I guess it was in Vermont, if I remember correctly.
Vermont, interesting.
I think that's what it said.
West Virginia?
Is it West Virginia? Maybe, maybe I'm just like a little like retarded and just misread and saw a V, and I was like, oh yeah, that's Vermont.
There could be a Mothman, and Mothman encounter in Vermont. That does happen. But yeah, one of the most famous, honestly, it's not as famous as it should be. But one of the famous sightings that happened in West Virginia was that one of the people claimed that the Mothman ate his dog or something. Yeah, so it's a thing.
Maybe I just read a Vermont encounter right after I read this plaque on this dog. Maybe that's what happened, and I'm just like, oh, this happened in Vermont. But so what was it that like piqued your interest to like follow this path of looking in and researching all this weird shit?
Oh Jesus. Well, I have two separate origin stories. So
two? Are you two different people? No, I'm just kidding.
I am. Yeah. Back in I think 2012, I got replaced with the different version of myself. Is weird. No,
I think I was too.
I'm not that wooish, but maybe. Anything is possible. No, so I as a kid, I got really interested in cryptozoology. And it's pretty basic. In middle school, we had like those like Time magazine. I don't know if they're Time or their Life. I've told the story so many times and nobody's ever corrected me. But in middle school, you get these little magazines to read during like study hall and stuff. And one of them, it had an article about the Patterson-Gimlin film. Well, sort of. The article was about Ray Wallace, and Ray Wallace had just died. And the news that was spreading around at the time was that Ray Wallace had faked his Bigfoot prints that he had. And he had these big wooden shoes that he would wear and go out and stomp around. Well, the Patterson-Gimlin film, one of the tips that Roger Patterson had was that Ray Wallace had shown him footprints of what he had gotten at Bluff Creek. And now that wasn't the only reason why he went out there, but that was one of the big reasons. And so the article called into question, well, if we know that those footprints aren't real, does that mean this film is not real? And they went on to talk about the PG film, but didn't have any pictures or anything. And I didn't know what they were talking about. So I go home and this is probably 2002, so I get on my internet and I find the film and I want to watch it. So after a week of like downloading it, I finally got to watch it. And when I watched it, I was blown away. I couldn't believe that anybody thought that this was anything other than a Bigfoot. So then, I kind of got on the Bigfoot track. Also at school, we did typing class. And
I remember that. I remember that.
typing. And when we're done with our typing for the day, there was like select few like websites we could get on and just kind of explore. And one of them had like a cryptozoology section. And it was just, you'd click on the creature and it was just like a paragraph. It was like a picture and like a paragraph of like what this thing is. So then of course I started getting into the shows and, as the internet became better and better, kind of following different forums. I was a big, huge fan of Cryptomundo way back when it was in operation. I mean, I woke up every day religiously and checked this website. It was just a blog of different cryptid news and things like that. And, I wanted to be a cryptozoologist. That was it. But, there's not a degree for cryptozoology.
No, unfortunately.
Right. So I'm like, well, how do I do this? So the dream was that I would go to school for zoology. And then I would just kind of, take private studies from there and do whatever. Well, I didn't do that. I ended up becoming an adult and doing regular adult things and just totally, went out of my mind. But I wasn't a crazy enthusiast, at that point. Again, let me reiterate, this was only cryptozoology. All I was interested in was the study of undiscovered animals. Like that was it. I didn't believe in a lot of the woo stuff. I didn't follow aliens. I was terrified of them. Still am very terrified of them. Paranormal stuff was kind of interest to a degree. Me and my friends, we would, I live in Dayton, Ohio. There's not a lot to do. So what we did for fun was drive around and get high and go ghost hunting. We'd go to different crybaby bridges and haunted roads. And I mean, anywhere that you could easily get to. We had some weird experiences, but it was never my favorites. So again, I kind of exited with this out of my life. I'd like to say that I was the crazy obsessed person that have always read all the books and watched all the things. I didn't really. Like I said, I did normal people things. And then in 2019, a couple of my friends offered for me to go with them to the Mothman Festival. And I thought, yeah, okay, why not? Well, one of the friends was a big YouTuber at the time, real big YouTuber. And he wanted to make like a little video movie, I guess. I don't know, something about the Mothman to put on his YouTube channel that was outside of his usual content. And they thought it'd be funny if like I came along and I was like the cryptozoologist, it was supposed to be fun. This was supposed to be a fun weekend. And then I went to the Mothman Festival that weekend and had my entire life changed. And that sounds so strange to say, or hear or say or whatever. It was just all of it was fucking weird. I didn't believe in the Mothman. I never had. I thought it was ridiculous. I thought people just saw a big sandhill crane. I didn't think anything of it. The town was just using it to make money, whatever. But then I went and experienced, a string of synchronicities, and it didn't stop once I left. It was like my whole life was affected by this. Everything, every day-to-day interaction that I had was significant in some type of way for like months on end.
Wow.
And so I started digging into like research about this creature and different things, and I had some theories at the time that I don't necessarily agree with now, but I felt compelled to tell the whole world about it. I feel like everybody needed to know the secret information that I have. And I decided I was going to make a documentary about it. And I'm Well, 4 years later, still working on it. So, but I've never done, I've never made a documentary before. I've never done anything like this.
Yeah.
Even in 2019, I didn't even have a smartphone when I went to the Mothman Festival. I still
Oh,
had just a regular, I had a touch screen, but it wasn't a smartphone. But it was, talk and text only. I was not technologically savvy at all, so I've learned everything from fucking scratch, and so here I am.
yeah. So doing your podcast must have been quite the learning curve too, then.
Yeah, it was. And I don't I know some people when they get better at podcasting will pull their original shows off, right? Because they're terrible. Everybody's first couple shows are fucking awful.
Yeah.
Not me. I keep them on there. I love to be shamed. And no, I I keep the old episodes on there, and you could tell. I mean, just listening to it, it's bad quality. It's me and a friend sitting on my couch with one microphone sharing it.
Yeah.
It's not good. But you learn. You just do it
Yeah.
and you learn. So
My very first episode is absolutely atrocious on the audio aspect, but like the conversation and everything and the topic was like the stuff we got into, the information and everything was amazing, except
right.
it's hard to listen to because of the audio.
Yeah. Yep.
I was so mad about it, but I was like, I'm gonna fucking post it anyway because
Yeah.
I thought it was still, worth sharing. And then my first ever episode, I think it's like it's either 4 or 5 was my first actual like talking with somebody that I didn't know. And I believe that was Gina Black. She's a paranormal investigator in South Florida, and I
Okay.
reached out to her, and yeah, she got the ball. The first time I recorded with her, it didn't work, and then had to record with her a second time, so it kind of sounds a little like scripted a little bit, just because I already knew what was. So like I didn't have like authentic reactions to some of the things that she was saying, and
Yeah.
but um, I feel like it's gotten. Oh, and I was a little. I'm a little. I was a little bit of an introvert before I started my podcast too. Like I'm not like I wasn't a complete introvert,
Mm.
um, but the podcast definitely has helped me like open my dialogue with strangers. So, like this is
I
the
know
first
it
time you and
does.
I
Yeah.
are actually like having dialogue with other than typing. You know what I mean? So,
Right. Yeah. Yeah,
um,
it does help with a lot of things, and I tell people are like, I come across people all the time like, oh, well, I'm thinking about starting a podcast, but I got to do this and I got to do that and I got to do this. No, the fuck you do not. All you have to do is just do it. Like there's nothing to it but to do it. And then you learn as
yes,
you go, and you will learn as you go. Your first episodes aren't going to be good. And I'll be honest with you, I don't even think I was happy with my show until about 2 years in. I enjoyed doing it, but as far as like the format, the sound, everything, and even still to this day, I just did an episode the other day and the sound quality, it's not great. It's not great. And you know what? The thing is that I put out an
yeah,
episode every single week and I have to edit it every single week. And sometimes it's just not great. There's next week, It
yeah,
happens.
yeah. I hear you. I hear you.
So
The first what's that? 2 weeks from now will be like, so I started my show in like April of 2022, right? So technically the past April was a year, but I did like 2 episodes and then I did a third one randomly, and then it wasn't until like a month later that I did a fourth one, and then it was 2 months later I did a fifth one, and then it was 3 months later I did the sixth one, and then it wasn't
right.
until no like Halloween, and then November really like started becoming more consistent. November and then December, and then like it really, so like I'm gonna say November, probably the second week of November will be like my actual like year, because that was when I really started like working my ass off to like have guests and all that stuff, and like researching like certain topics and stuff like that. So
Yeah, I
uh
mean, I commend you for not having a co-host.
yeah, well,
That is difficult.
yeah, well, I did have a co-host for a little bit, and
Oh,
it was my sister. So like, and she had just moved. She got out of a really shitty relationship, and she was just sitting at my mom's house at night, and I was just like, "Hey, you want to do this with me?" And she's like, "Sure." So I mean,
I
we
guess so.
experienced a lot of paranormal stuff together as
Right.
kids.
Gotcha.
So we've both been like into the paranormal. So the paranormal is what I knew first.
Right.
And then I slowly started getting into the cryptid shit, and then like aliens is a little foreign to me because I've never experienced or saw anything that I could attribute to
Mhm.
UFO or anything alien. So um,
I'm trying to free your mind, but I can only show you the door. You're the one that has to walk through it. And by walking through it, my friends, head on over to www.deeperdown.store. There you will find some sick-ass threads, AI-inspired art on t-shirts, hoodies, flip-flops and cups, and motherfucking tote bags. I promise you, my friends, if you follow the rabbit, you will not be disappointed. You can also find _ down the rabbit hole _ on Instagram. He has thousands of followers, and he shows you deep down the rabbit hole on conspiracies, hauntings, and cryptids. I highly recommend you subscribe for $2.99 a month. Also, if you check out his store, upon checkout, enter code KevinsWeird18. There, my friends, you will get 18% off of your purchase. So please, I highly recommend and suggest to you to go check out his store. David is a good friend, and he deserves the utmost respect, and I wish him nothing but success. But this is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
So have you ever had like an alien experience or a UFO
Oh
sighting?
yeah. A lot of UFO sightings. I've taken videos and pictures of these things. Like I said, I saw the Mothman, and I believe the Mothman is what we would consider an alien.
Yeah,
Um
I've heard real quick before you get into the story, but
mhm.
I heard that the Mothman is just is like a astronaut suit for an alien.
Oh, interesting. I don't think I've ever heard that theory before. But it could be. Um I don't think it's that complicated though, honestly.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, it was an interesting story that I had heard. I believe it was on another podcast. He like this guy like had experienced some stuff, and he's just like, oh yeah, it's just a suit for gray alien. It's a gray alien suit, like like if when we go to the moon or whatever. Although we've never been to the moon, but
Hmm.
um like he's like, yeah, he's like, we just like they have a hard time breathing, so they need a suit and this and that, and that's where you get the Mothman. And I was like, what?
I mean, I think it's interesting because I've heard the theory that gray aliens themselves are suits or
I've
drones of some sort.
I've heard that too, just because
Um,
they seem so like cold and
Emotionless,
yeah,
and there's no, identifying factors to them at all. They're just very bland.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean I think that's a very popular theory. I've never heard one mention that maybe the Mothman could be, but maybe it could be, maybe.
yeah,
I think it's got some type of sentience. It's not just like a weird encounter with an animal.
yeah,
It's
yeah, for
there's
sure.
something to it. I think that it targets people. As weird as that sounds, I think it visits certain people on purpose. And we know that because there's like groups of people who you'll have like five in a group. Two of them saw it, three of them didn't, for whatever reason. My encounter was interesting. Actually, it was kind of funny because I was at Mysticon at the Ravenswood Library a couple weeks ago, and I gave a talk there about the Men in Black, and I'm standing there with Ron from Wild and Weird, West Virginia,
Mm-hmm.
and Linda Sigmund. Now, what's interesting about both of those people is that Ron and Linda have both had a Mothman encounter. And what's interesting about us all three standing there together is that we all had very different experiences. So, um,
Interesting. You're talking
it
about
is
Ron Murphy, right?
no
No, why was I thinking that
Ron
was Ron
Lamb.
Murphy?
No, Ron runs Wild and Weird West Virginia with Joe Purdue,
Oh,
and
okay, all right,
not Ron
all
Murphy.
right.
I haven't had a chance to talk to him yet. We haven't crossed paths just yet. But yeah, and then Linda Sigmund's one of the original Mothman experiencers from the 67, 66, the West Virginia flap.
Uh-huh.
So
Yep.
my encounter is very simple. It's not elaborate or crazy or anything. I was at a friend's house. This was 2016. It was sometime in the summer. We had made pot brownies and we got really high. True story.
My
Um,
favorite kind of brownie.
we made pot brownies. We got really high. That's what we did. It
Mhm.
was normal for us. We got high a lot.
Mhm.
And so I was staying the night at her house. That was like the thing. Like we were gonna have a girls' night. We're gonna watch movies and make weed brownies and eat them, and it's gonna be great. So the night's over. The night commences, and we're going to bed. And I'm supposed to sleep on a couch, which is totally fine. And I'm laying on her couch, and I just start feeling terrible. I was very, very, very scared. And, you know, I guess I don't even want to say it was fear. I was very overwhelmed is probably a lot more accurate. And
Yeah.
panicky. And I have anxiety. That's just who I am. But not usually like that, but I just attribute it to the fact that I was really high, right? So when you're really high, for the people that don't get really high a lot or ever, one thing that you'll do when you're really fucked up is you're like pick a point in the room to like focus on, and you like look at it and be like, it's fine, I'm okay, just to kind of ground yourself.
Yeah.
So I do that, and my point in the room happened to be she had this like big TV cabinet like the corner of the room, and there was maybe like 2 feet between the top of the cabinet and the ceiling, and the doors are open on it. It's catty corner in the room, doors are open, and I'm looking above it. I'm looking in the corner of the room above it to like the corner of the ceiling, and all of a sudden this thing starts, I don't know, forming. I don't really know. I don't know if that's the right word, becoming visible. It was very weird. And it was initially like a head. It was like a black, misty kind of head. And then the head, gives into shoulders, and then the shoulders give into arms. And the arms are starting to like outstretch above like the ceiling, and like to the whole room above me. But then the arms start coming downwards. And I realize they're not arms, they're wings. And when I talk about this, it's not like this happened over the course of like an hour. Like this was like the course of like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Because once I kind of realized, because I'm sitting here like that, I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing that. And I'm like, maybe I am, maybe I'm not, maybe I am. once I realized that I'm potentially seeing something weird like that, I got up and left the room. And I went and I woke her up, and I didn't tell her what I had seen. But I told her, hey, I gotta wake up. I'm freaking out. Freaking out. And she just laughs. She's like, "Oh my God, you're just so high. That's so funny." Ha ha ha. And she comes in and hangs out with me until I fall asleep. Good friend. Um, but I was really, I mean, I was very visibly like upset. And
Yeah.
at that time in my life, again, I definitely didn't believe in the moth. I didn't see this thing and go, "Oh my God, that's Mothman. I know it's Mothman." I didn't think anything of it. What I did in my brain, I'm very skeptical to begin with. Even now, I'm a pretty big skeptic. And I definitely didn't believe in anything like that.
Mm.
Um, I just kind of ignored it. I just attributed it to the fact that I was really high, even though I've never hallucinated on weed before. It was something we did all the time, you know. But I just kind of put it away from my head. And it wasn't until I had received an encounter from somebody else in 2021 who described a very similar encounter to mine that I realized, holy shit, that makes sense now. That's what I saw. Um, when I say that I saw this thing forming, it's not like it was there. So, like the projectors at school, right? The
Yes.
little the
Yep.
overhead projectors.
Yep.
And they put the paper down, whatever, it's transparent, and then they put another fucking paper on top of it, another transparent paper on top of it. It was like that. Like I was very aware that this was like a different layer. I don't know how to describe it to people who haven't experienced something like this. And when I
Right.
when I describe it to people like that, they're like, "Oh yeah, I know what you mean," and they do. I believe they know what I mean. um it was very odd, and I just, like I said, I never thought about it ever again. Well, what I have learned, the short version of what I've learned about Mothman encounters is that a lot of things happen in your life after you experience these things. And it's very it has a huge impact in a big way. And it's not just like a huge impact as in, "Oh my God, I saw the Mothman and that was weird," and it changes. It's just everything in your life changes. And I believe personally that it's in a good way. But I went through a lot of, at that time, a lot of mental health struggles that I had to overcome. I went through a huge job change. There was just a lot going on. And then, coupled with the fact that, Mothman weekend was so weird, and I finally went in 2019. It was so strange. So I'll give I'll give you just a taste of some of the things. A lot of the stuff, I mean, I can only put in a documentary. There's so much, or in the book. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot. But for example, the guy that was coming up, the big YouTuber, him and I had been flirting online for like years. And this is gonna sound, I guess I don't know the caliber of your audience, but like we were definitely gonna fuck. Like that was the plan. Like we're fucking. And
Yeah, no, this
and
is
then
an explicit
oh, okay.
podcast,
Okay.
so
Wonderful. Good. But that was the plan, right? So me at the time and who I was, I'm a very hypersexual person. If you guys listen to my show, you know this about me.
hmm
If you don't listen to my show, you should. And but
definitely
that's
you should.
that's one of the things about me. Like I'm very openly sexual and I'm a proud slut. That's me. And so I'm not shy. I'm not a shy person at all, but like this dude shows up and I meet him for the first time and I am like visibly fucking anxious. Like I was shaking. I couldn't look at him. It was so weird. And I don't think it had anything to do with him or our interaction or anything like that.
Yeah.
I just felt I had that same kind of feeling, very overwhelmed. And at one point he was like, we get together alone and he's like, "You don't like me, do you?" And I'm like, "It's not that." And what I told him was, this weekend's going to be a big weekend. I don't know why, but it's going to be a big weekend. And again, even then in 2019, I didn't believe in intuition or synchronicities or magic, or I didn't believe in any of that. So it was just wild. And just even leading up to even that meeting, which was so significant in and of itself, I saw a giant shadow one day fly over top of my car, but there was no planes or birds or clouds or anything else in the stoplights. I went to the grocery store one day and I had this weird feeling that I wanted to summon the Mothman. It was so weird. And it was like a kind of like a voice in my head that just kept saying it over and over again. And I didn't understand, I've never had like intrusive thoughts or anything like this happen before. So it was all very strange. It was a weird life. So anyway, back to what I was saying about how this is significant to my own encounter. Again, when you have these witnesses, if you talk to any Mothman witness, they have huge changes in their life. They have huge changes within them as people. Even if they don't necessarily believe what they saw, even if they live in denial about what they saw, you can
A lot
deny
of
it,
people
but
do.
yeah, you can't stop it. It is what it is. So
Yeah. So did you? So this when the encounter with the pot brownies, that
yeah.
was before you went to the festival?
Oh yeah. Like I said, it was 2016 when that happened. I didn't go
That's
to the
right.
festival until
Okay.
2019. So
Yep.
yeah, 3 years.
Yep. So, did you ever like calm down to hang out with this guy?
Yeah, eventually, so we kind of ended up bonding over the fact that there were all these synchronicities happening. It wasn't just me, it was him too.
Uh-huh.
And and we were there with two other friends. They were kind of not really in our business. They weren't really on the same track that we were, but we were definitely noticing a lot of really strange things happening. And we kind of kept like the whole weekend, from there, we were like, oh, it's a sign, it's a sign. And we were kind of joking about it, we're like, oh, it's the universe talking to us. This
Yeah.
this weekend romance getaway, and it's significant. So at one point in time, one of my friends, here's a crazy story. This is crazy. So the friend that we're with, she wants to go to the pharmacy. We're staying at an Airbnb in West Virginia. It's about an hour away from the festival itself. They decide to plug in their GPS, the nearest pharmacy, and it's about 40 minutes away, but it's 40 minutes away on the opposite side of where we're going.
Oh, geez.
So we go and we stop there. And I remember this pharmacy now because now I know I've been to now West Virginia. I used to go every weekend. It's only 2 hours away from me. It's not far.
Yeah.
But now I know this is a chain pharmacy. It's called Fruth's Pharmacy, like Ruth, but with an F, Fruth's.
Huh.
And it's a whole chain of pharmacy there. And I remember this because I'm bad and I smoke cigarettes, and I get out of their car to smoke a cigarette while they're in the pharmacy, and I see this newspaper stand, and huge on the side of the newspaper stand, the publication is called Signs of the Times. And it says signs real big, and then other times really tiny underneath it. That's not the crazy part though. This is the crazy part. Okay. Here comes the crazy part. So anyway, so I'm sitting there, I took a picture of the newspaper stand, I take a selfie because that's what I do. And I get back in the car, we have a great weekend, whatever. 2021. Okay, September of 2021. I have just met a lot of people in the community. 2020, we all spent a lot of time together virtually in virtual spaces. I meet all these different types of people just through social media. Clubhouse became a big thing. We would get, me and in this group of great people would get on there and do Clubhouse like 3 times a week and talk to everybody. We finally all meet each other in, I think it was August of 2020. We all there was like a bunch of us getting together for an event, so we all got to finally meet. It was magical. But September of 2020 was the second event that was coming up after that one. Of course, I wanted to go. I wanted to go spend time with my friends. These
Yeah.
cool people I just met. So I go. I had gotten a ride with Danner, who runs Conjure Dust Design. He's a cryptid artist. He's amazing. Go check him out. Because he's also an Ohioan. And I was like, hey, can I come with you to this event? It's the Braxy Bazaar. It's a Flatwoods Monster Festival. And so he's like, yeah, absolutely. The plan was we would leave out Friday night. Flatwoods is a little bit further. It's like, I think it's like 3.5 hours, but we decided we'd leave out Friday night. We'd stay at some Airbnb. And then Saturday night, we were all going to stay together in an Airbnb. So we get into our Airbnb pretty late on Friday, some place that Danner had picked, whatever, kind of the in-between point. And we're like out looking for the Airbnb. Okay, we're walking around and we're trying to find it. We can't. It was kind of crazy locating it. We did eventually. But I see a Fruits Pharmacy. And again, I think about this every single time. I think about the sign, right? And
Yeah.
I'm looking and I'm looking, and I'm like, huh, that's interesting. Let me go back inside, go to bed, and come out the next morning. And I'm looking some more. And I'm looking at like the architecture of the building. So the Fruits Pharmacy that we went to, usually Fruits is like its own separate, it's kind of like a Walgreens. It's like its own separate building. This was
Yeah.
like built into a shopping center. It's like a little cutesy town that we were in. And so I noticed this Fruits is also built into a shopping center. And the building right next to it was like a bank, and it had like these big arches on the front of it. And I look, and this Fruits has a bank. It's got big arches on the front of it. I don't see a newspaper thing though. So I go over there and I get the bright idea. You know what? I took a selfie while I was standing right here. So I look at my selfie and I pull my camera out and I've got it in like selfie mode, and I'm like looking, and sure as shit, there I am for the second time in my life, standing in the exact same place that by no choice of my own I picked. I don't know what it means. I have no idea what the significance of that is. I just know that it's significant. And that kind of stuff happens to me all the time.
Wow.
So,
That's
all the time.
interesting.
All the time. Is it a big deal? One of my good friends explained synchronicity to me one time in a really good way, I think. Explaining synchronicity to another person who did not experience it is a lot like explaining a dream. And
Yes.
they're not wrong. They're not wrong. But when I started all this, that was kind of my main focus, was to try to figure out the synchronicity of it all, what that means and why it leads us here, and why these things are personal. And will I ever get those answers? I don't know, probably not, but I think it's worth a shot to try. And that's what made me
Absolutely.
curious, and that's the information that I thought people should know about. And I think that's one of the pieces that we're missing in the community. So it's getting better. The new Kirks made it a lot more popular, but
Yes, for sure.
that's all I'll say about that.
So, what was your first ever like UFO or alien experience?
So the UFO one was actually, I was a lot younger. I was 18. I just gotten back home for the night, partying with friends, whatever I was doing. And I'm sitting on my parents' porch, and it's about 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. It's real late. And I see like a light in the sky from a distance. But there's like a lot of trees and stuff in the area. And once it kind of like hits this clearing where there weren't really any trees, it ended up being like headlights. It was like two giant headlights in the sky. And it was moving in tandem with each other. And it was just kind of back and forth, back and forth. Like it was just kind of wobbly. And it flew over the house. And like I mentioned earlier, I'm terrified of aliens, which is hilarious because now what I do, I'm more a ufologist than anything. Honestly, it's what I put most of my time into now, but I am fucking terrified of them. And so I was very scared. I went to my house. I was in tears. I mean, I was scared to death. I found like a UFO reporting website. And I followed it for like at least 2 weeks just to see if anybody else had seen this thing, and nobody had reported it. I never did report it. But I know what I saw. It was weird.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like that again as far as UFO goes. A lot of them are just interesting and oddly shaped and colored lights. I've seen weird stuff during the day though, but yeah, that was the first one.
Okay. Now, earlier you did mention that you were overcome with the feeling of summoning the Mothman. Is there a way to summon the Mothman?
Um, I don't know. That's a good question. I haven't done it yet.
Oh, okay.
So we've tried, I'll be honest with you. We've set our minds to it, and we're like, we're gonna go and do this. Like, this is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But something always seems to happen whenever we try. So the one time we were gonna try it, we went down to Point Pleasant, West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
We went down to the TNT area. Not because I think Mothman lives there. I don't. But I think that it's somewhere that's very heavily tied to the Mothman. Even though it's not even where most of the sightings took place. I think only one of the sightings took place there. Anyway, we just thought it'd be a good place to practice, right?
Yeah.
So we decide to go down there. And it's spooky down there. Nobody's ever there, ever. They are during the Mothman Festival. Any other time of year, fucking nobody is out there. So we
Spooky.
get to super spooky, super weird. That place is weird, and you just feel it in your whole body. You know it's weird.
Yeah.
So we go down there, and I take a certain friend with me who is, very much involved in witchcraft and things like that. And I take her, and she's never been to Point Pleasant, West Virginia before. So anybody at the time that I knew that had never been, whenever we go, we do the touristy stuff. We go to the museum and we go look at the Mothman's butt, and then we go get a Mothman pizza, and then we go and get down to business.
Yeah, right.
So while we're, touring around the town, initially, I'm like I kind of act as tour guide to my friends. I'm like, well, this is where this happened and this is that. We're at the Silver Bridge Memorial, and my witchy friend sees this plant, and she starts like she's like, oh my God, what is that? And she's like walking towards it, and then she stops dead in her tracks because right in front of the plant is a dead bird. Well, birds die. You know what happens.
Mm.
It's not too weird. But then we start kind of walking the town, and we're just visiting all the little shops, and it's fun. And then there's like an empty window front, and in the window front is a dead rat that's like dead as fuck. It's like super dead. It's like cut in half, and it's all
What the
dried up.
fuck?
Yeah. And it was weird because it's right at the window, and it's like, you can't tell me that this has just been chilling here. I've never seen it before. It's just been fucking chilling here for at least 3 years, It's just, I mean, it's like a mummified rat in the window. It was really weird. And so we're like, okay, whatever, we're done with this. Lost our appetite. We didn't get our pizza. We we go to the TNT area, and we're getting everything set up. I set up all my cameras. I set up all my microphones, everything, everything that I need. We start burning some sage. We're getting ready. We're getting really into it. And right at that moment, two people just out of fucking nowhere come walking up. And again, nobody's ever out there. Ever. Nobody's ever there. And so I was just like, you know what? Let's not do this.
This is a bad time.
Like, everything is telling us not to do this,
Right.
So we're just gonna not do this. So we didn't that day, we didn't. And that seems to always consistently happen with it. I don't know if it's just a mind over matter situation. I don't know if I just shouldn't. I don't know if it's just not time. I have no idea. But I'll keep trying. I will keep trying, that's for sure. I'm interested in trying.
Yeah. I'm interested. I actually have a picture of the Mothman right here.
Yeah.
I bought it at
Very cool.
Squonka Mothman has always intrigued me. Mothman, Bigfoot, and recently Dogman, because I think I had a Dogman experience. Like, I tell the story. I
Interesting.
didn't see, like, I just saw the eyes, you know what I mean? So I
Okay.
don't know physically.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember having this like wicked sense of dread and grabbing my gun and sitting down on my couch, and both my dogs went from barking to, as soon as I was afraid, they were afraid, and they both of them sat next to me on the couch, and I sat there with my rifle until I fell asleep.
Was it
So,
it was at home? It was like peeking in your window?
it was in the wood. It's like there was like a tree line next to my house, and then on the other side of the tree line was a field, and there was coyotes and stuff, and my dogs bark at coyotes every time they're in the yard.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then I saw the eyes, and there was like a rock wall in this tree line.
Mm-hmm.
And the moonlight was shining in the field, but you can't, obviously, with the trees and stuff, you can't really see inside that little tree line. And it's a rock wall that separates the property. Well, there's this one rock that was there it was like a boulder, and it was maybe just barely taller than me, and I'm 5'10", so I would say like it was a 6 foot boulder, and these eyes
Wow.
were a little bit taller than that boulder, and it was standing behind it.
Wow.
And yeah, because I could just see, I could make out where this boulder was and stuff, but I couldn't quite like see like any kind of figure with the eyes. You know what I mean? So I couldn't tell
Interesting.
if it had ears or anything. But I it was like 2020 when I started listening to podcasts, and
Right.
conspiracies were the first ones. So well, it was Joe
Sure.
Rogan, and then
Right.
conspiracies, and then in the conspiracies I started hearing like paranormal stuff. So then I found a
Mhm.
paranormal podcast and got really into that. And
Was it mine?
yes.
Oh, okay. Good. That's the right
Yes,
answer.
it was. But I started hearing all these stories of Dog Man,
Right.
and that he's like right around between 6 to 7 feet,
Hmm.
red glowing eyes, sometimes orange, I guess. And like this overcome you get overcome with like this sense of dread. And I was like, well, that happened to me. And I've heard that he's accompanied with coyotes a lot. So, or,
Interesting. Dogman is an interesting one to me, because everything everything in our fossil record, everything that we know about animals says that it doesn't exist.
right,
But you have people who have these such extreme encounters, and I do genuinely believe that they see something. And then not just that, on top of that, um, dog man type creatures, for lack of a better term, werewolves have been around forever. For as long as
mm-hmm,
we have, they've been around.
yeah,
And so I just think that personally, werewolf stories from back in the day aren't necessarily people transforming into wolves.
right.
I think it's just like, hey, maybe this guy leaves the village, right? And then a dog man comes in and attacks. And then that guy comes back and they're like, it was him, it was that asshole. Um, Meanwhile, he's
Yeah,
like, that's why we have stuff like the werewolf trials where people were accused of being werewolves and then they clearly weren't. They were just people.
just like
So
the
I,
Salem witch trials and all
right.
that shit.
Yeah. So and we knew none of them were witches. Um, I think that there's got to be something to it if it's a tale this old.
For
But
sure.
the skeptic in me is like, well, what the fuck, man? How's that make any sense?
Mm,
I don't think that the same as I believe as a Mothman. Again, you're not going to find a Mothman nest. You're not going to find a Dogman den. Doesn't exist. I think that there's something else beyond a flesh and blood, just living out in the wild type of creature. But I do think
right.
they're very wild. I think they're very primal, and that's why they're
Yes.
so scary and violent. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was talking to Alexander Petakov.
oh yeah,
I don't know if you know who he is.
he was one of the clubhouse crew. So yeah, he's one of
Oh,
the
nice.
he's one
Yeah,
of my OGs.
he's
Great
such a
dude.
sweet guy,
Yeah,
and super knowledgeable on
yeah,
all things Bigfoot and
yeah.
in the wilderness. So, I had him on not too long ago, and he was like, I asked him what camp he was in, like Flesh and Blood or Paranormal,
Mhm.
and he's with Bigfoot especially, he's Flesh and Blood just because based off the evidence that he's found. But
Yeah,
I'm kind of like, I think it's both. You know what I mean? Like I think all the above. You know,
yeah.
um,
Well,
I
I'm
think
I'm
all the
very much
aspects.
both with Bigfoot. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that I think there is an undiscovered species of ape in North America. Um, because as Alex would tell you, just all the evidence, an overwhelming amount of the evidence points to it. However, there are strange instances with Bigfoot that go beyond a certain level of basic comprehension. Doesn't mean that those stories are fake. Sure, maybe some of them are. But we do have some really significant, the only case of Bigfoot in Project Blue Book was accompanied by a UFO sighting.
No
And
shit.
there were, oh yeah, it's Presque Isle. I'll tell you real quick. Why not? Presque Isle incident. So a family was driving around Presque Isle in Pennsylvania, and right off of Erie, Pennsylvania,
Mm-hmm.
and they had seen a UFO come land in like the woods there. Land looked like on the beach there on Lake Erie, and they'd kind of stopped and were kind of talking about it, like, well, what should we do? So a couple of police officers come by in their car and they see this car just sitting there. They ask them, hey, what are you guys doing? And they explain the situation. Well, we saw this, I don't know if they said UFO, but they're like, we saw this thing land over there. And the cops are like, okay. So they take the men with them and with the police, and they go to investigate what this was that landed over there. They didn't find anything. But when they came back, the women and children were in the car and they were hysterical, absolutely beside themselves. And they're like, well, what's going on? What's happening? And they said that the car had been attacked by a giant hairy beast and it had been attacked by a Bigfoot. And there were markings on the car to, prove that something was happening. So they all left and got the hell out of there. Of course, again, at the time, this was in Project Blue Book was a big deal. So the U.S. government came in and they did their investigation, didn't find anything because they're not good at their job. And that was that. So, I mean, what are the chances that these people encountered a UFO and a Bigfoot at the same time? It's just not, it doesn't add up. And they didn't fake it. I mean, come on, why would they? They didn't know those police officers were going to show up. They weren't just sitting there waiting for police to roll up on them so they could fake this big story.
Right.
That shit probably happens. It probably happened. And then of course I had Tim Renner on my show just a couple weeks ago, and he's the king of the woo Bigfoot. That's his domain, and some of the stories he tells they're so fascinating. And I don't think that he's incorrect. And the thing about it is that those Bigfoot encounters track with other anomalous phenomena that is extra strange, like the Mothman. So I mean, it's kind of a thing, and I think we're not doing it any justice if we just ignore the fact that it does happen. But
Right.
I don't think it's the same creature. I think it's two different creatures. So.
Yes, I think you hit the nail on the head with that one for sure. I think that as well. And that's another reason why too that I really started the podcast is, because people encounter this stuff and then they're like, well, I'm fucking crazy. People are going to think I'm crazy. And then they live with this trauma without expressing it. So like that's another aspect. So like I focus like a lot on mental health because that's important that goes along with these kind of encounters. Like, you need to be able to talk about it. You need to be able to share about it without being ridiculed or harassed, I guess, in a way, or bullied to think that you're just like this insane person.
Absolutely.
So there's so I just want people to understand that that this is a safe place, and I'm sure your podcast is a safe place if they want to share their stories or send them to you as well.
Absolutely. I am a skeptic. I'll say that I'm a skeptic, and I do ask hard questions at times to people. And it's not because I want to prove that your story is bullshit. It's because I would be really bad at my job if I didn't do it that way. At the same time, unless you ask me my opinion about your experience, and I will be honest with you about what I think it is. I'm not going to ridicule you. I'm not going to, call you a bad person or anything, unless you're like clearly very obviously faking something. Then I probably will call you out on your bullshit. So don't contact me in that case. But, if you legitimately had an experience, I'm not, I don't jive with, putting you on blast and trying to prove your story wrong. I don't think that does any good. So.
Yeah. It's funny too, because you can kind of like tell when they're fake in a little way. But like I even have a hard time saying like, oh, I don't believe you, even when I feel like like they're fake. But I mean, in a certain sense, like it could be real to them, but the way they're telling it just sounds like shit. Or they're just telling it in a terrible way or something like that. Like kids tell stories in a weird way where you're just like, what? I don't think you're being honest. You know what I mean?
That is what they experienced,
Right. So
those kids. Yeah, I know. I as a parent, I understand what you mean. it's definitely well, and that's why then the questions come up, and then you start asking. I'd like to really get to know my witnesses. Like, that's one thing that I pride myself on, is that my witnesses that report to me, they have a friend for life in me. Even if I find out they're full of shit, but one of the main reasons why I like to do that is because typically these encounters, it doesn't usually just happen once. It happens repeatedly. And on top of that, you can really get to know somebody. So if you catch someone and a lot of weird white lies all the time, chances are their story was probably not, valid.
Mhm.
As much as I hate to say that, but you have to take on certain interrogative techniques in order to effectively interview somebody. And
For
it's
sure.
not just asking people questions when you're researching the topics, because you have to kind of decide what camp you're going to put it in. Is this significant? Okay, if it's significant, where do I catalog this? I've mentioned that a lot. I've talked about it a lot on the show recently. We're kind of in this era now of categorizing this stuff. And I think that is the next important step. I mean, at first we were just kind of telling all the stories everywhere, and we're like, hey, this weird stuff happens, you guys. Hey, you guys. Hey, you guys. Now, now we're like, okay, this weird stuff happens, and it belongs in this camp, and we're building a pattern.
Yep.
And I think that's really important. And so that is why it's important also to tell your stories, even if you feel like nobody at all will believe that crazy weird thing that you saw. Listen, it's not the craziest, weirdest story you've ever told me, I promise. But you have to tell them, you have to tell somebody that studies this stuff. It doesn't even have to be me. Maybe you don't like me or whatever, maybe you don't like talking to me. I don't know. Just
Yeah,
tell somebody that works in some type of capacity, so that way we can get the information out there and we can all work together to try to
for sure.
push it one step closer to finding something.
Absolutely. I agree 100% with you.
Yeah.
Now, you're working on this documentary on Mothman. What has been the process for that like?
Oh, geez. I've used all the process and any of the process and everything. It's been interesting. Like I said, I've never made a movie before. And on top of that, I'm not just making a movie. When I first told my mom I was doing this, okay.
Mhm.
She was real disappointed, and
Jeez.
she was real disappointed. She's like, "Aren't there already documentaries about the Mothman?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, but mine's gonna be better.
you're right." But she did have a good point, right? And, if
Right,
I'm just
right.
retelling the same story over and over again, people have already seen it. I'm not
Mm,
really going to make much of a name for myself, and nobody's really going to care that much. This is an ongoing investigation. So the things that you see are happening in real time, as I am also figuring them out. So it's been interesting. I have visited a lot of people and talked to a lot of people. Um, and even still, on top of the investigative work, you're also trying to create something that the audience wants to watch, that they enjoy looking at, that's fun to listen to. So that's been a hard part, bringing those two worlds together. But where it's at right now, I'm almost done. Everybody keeps telling me you just got to pick a stopping point, just stop and let it be done. I don't have to do shit. The Mothman prophecies took John Keel 9 years to come up and publish, so I don't have to do anything. But I do want to, as an investigator, I'm ready to move on to the next thing. In fact, I have already, but there's still one piece of the puzzle that I'm trying to put together, and I have to be very, very careful about how I present this information, because it does deal with the modern day sightings of the Mothman in the Chicago area. And,
mm.
spoiler alerts where it stands right now. And I do like to put it out there for everybody, because maybe when the documentary comes out, my mind will have changed. But where I stand right now, uh, I think they're bullshit. So
Oh shit.
I think they're bullshit. And I won't really go into detail about why or what or how.
You'll have to
I'm
watch the
not
movie for that.
exactly. I have to watch a movie for that one. But I want to make sure I want to get the information right. I'm not just going to put it out there just because it's a hit piece and it's interesting. It's important to me that I get as close to the facts as I possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
And so we are on our last leg. That's our last major investigation into it, unless something else pops off that's significant. But it's been lots of fun. It's been a lot of fun. You meet a lot of really cool people. You do a lot of really cool things,
Yep.
most of which never make it in the film. So it's great.
Nice. And you're writing a book to go along with the documentary?
I am, and that was just kind of because, fuck it, why not?
Yeah.
I've already done all this research on it, and it's already all written down. Like it is physically written down and ready for me to put together in a cohesive book to put out with people. So you don't need to consume one to enjoy the other. As a matter of fact, the book absolutely will come first. I'm trying very, very hard to get it out by the end of this year, but I just also went on a massive co-host search for my podcast, so no promises. But it's just my research. It's just everything that I've learned. It's just all the encounters that I've come across, and putting it together. I'm not telling the same old story about the Mothman and the Silver Bridge and this, that, and the other. I'm telling the story of a creature that's been around forever that has no significant flaps or encounters. It just occurs all the time, and
Mm-hmm.
the book, of course, will be a lot more comprehensive about the specific sightings because I can't fit all of those, even in a feature-length documentary. But you can enjoy both, but you don't have to consume both.
Nice. Nice. Well, I will probably consume both just because I love the topic, and
You
everybody
better.
that I've talked to that has had like a documentary or something like that, like Heather and Alex with the
Oh yeah,
small town monsters, like I watch all their stuff.
yeah.
um and then I just met Ronnie LeBlanc, and so I just learned of him. um and I didn't realize he was like kind of like a big name in
Somebody,
the
yeah.
Bigfoot realm. So um uh, I just kind of like I was just like, "Oh, hey, nice to meet you." I was like, what's this book about?" And he's telling me about his books and stuff like that. And then as he's telling me, like I'm looking at the sign that he has on his table, and it's what is it? The Travel Channel, I believe they're on,
Oh,
Expedition Bigfoot. And
oh.
it says on the Travel Channel, and I was like, "Whoa, wait, what the fuck?"
I just met somebody I didn't even know.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
it's like it's very much like that. In this community, it can. I told somebody one time I didn't know who they were, and the shitty thing about it is that I didn't recognize her face. I'm really bad at recognizing. So, like, if you guys know me online and then you meet me in person, just tell me who you are because I won't recognize you by your face.
Yeah.
Um, it escapes me. But that's why I tell everybody to approach me. I've got flaming red hair. You'll know who the fuck I am. Just based on that alone, not anything else, just that. So I had met somebody who has been doing Bigfoot research specifically for like over 25 years. So I'm not going to say who it is because I genuinely feel fucking bad that I didn't know who they were. And I didn't recognize his face, and he'd introduced himself. And I think that I didn't actually hear him because when I had later found out and later in the night who he actually was, I was like, holy shit, that's so embarrassing. Because he's like, oh, I'm so and so. I was like, oh, really? I've never heard of your stuff before. Where can I find you? And he like, I think he hated me right off the bat because if you put 25 years at work into something and people don't know who you are, that's that sucks,
Yeah. Yeah.
But but the other side of it is, guess what? There's always new people coming into the community all the time. And we as investigators, researchers have to understand that you might be the first contact that this person's ever made into these subjects. And you're going to leave a very, either a very good or a very bad first impression on these people. Um,
Absolutely.
so I try to treat everybody that I meet with, the utmost care. I try to treat them as if they've never heard of this stuff. It's the first time they're ever hearing about it.
Yeah.
You can't just start a conversation with somebody and start off with something fucking absolutely out there. They don't get it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, since I started this podcast, like I had no idea. I still don't. There's still names that I don't know. People that
yeah.
have been working on this stuff for years. Like I went to Encounter Quest, which was my first ever convention, and it's the first ever convention of Encounter Quest. Was their first time ever putting one on. And Ron Moorhead was there, and I had no idea who he was. And Oren, my buddy Oren, who is a co-host over at Bizarre Encounters, he's like taking a picture with him and buying his book and stuff. And I was like, I don't know who that guy is. And then I went in to his speech and listened to him talk, and I was just like, oh my God, this guy's been doing this forever.
This guy's really important.
Yeah. And he was like, I really enjoyed his speech too,
Yeah.
like and everything. And I actually really liked him. And we ended up going to the hotel after, and we drank with everybody, but I kind of like sat and watched everybody talk to each other because I didn't really know like how to interact with everybody, just because I'm new to like this stuff. You know, I've experienced paranormal stuff my whole life, but when it comes to like researching cryptids and, you know, all that stuff, I'm freaking I'm a baby, you know.
Yeah, just learn it. Well, the good news is that for the most part, everybody's really heckin' nice, and
so far I haven't met anybody that was standoffish in any kind of way as of yet.
I mean,
So.
you'll hear a lot of people talk about the drama, and there is the drama, but there is with any community. You know what I mean? And if you come across somebody that's giving you a hard time about anything, just fucking block them and act like they don't exist. You know? It's easy, and then continue on with the nice people that are awesome. But yeah, people. I mean, it can be a fantastic community because we all are very much our own bosses. We do a lot of work for not a lot of pay, to be honest with you. And you know, we know how hard it is to start for the first time. So I mean, you know, honestly, you could talk to just about anybody and I think get a pretty good response. So
yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
Top of the day, everyone. I'm Nisha.
And I'm Buddha Badass.
And we're the hosts of Hot Garbage True Crime Edition. Do you guys like true crime?
I really don't. I feel like you force me on this show every freaking time I come here.
Do you guys enjoy listening to victims and murderers and grotesque stuff?
People that are sick in the freaking head. That's who likes it. That's who likes it.
Well, if you like that kind of stuff, then you should totally check us out. I mean, every single Thursday, we drop the most hottest cases, and we have fun while doing it.
You drop the most hottest cases? You drop murder and death. Kill.
How many people can actually say that they have fun while listening to a true crime podcast? And I feel like that's what we do here.
So you're just not going to listen to me now? I'm just going to say this and you're not going to listen to me?
And you know what? Our listeners are not just our listeners, but they're our friends and our trash pandas. We love you guys.
They're a lot, and I will agree to that part, but I'm still just mad at you for just not talking to me. They're paying you this well to say all this.
So check out Hot Garbage on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere that you listen to podcasts. Check us out every single Thursday. A new episode drops.
I officially hate this commercial. On some real.
Yeah. And reaching out to people like yourself is always nerve-wracking. That first message, like, how am I going to be perceived, or like, I don't want to like look desperate, which I'm not desperate, but like, I don't want to give like that presumption of me, like, oh, I really need you on my podcast, like, you know what I mean, like, so I just don't want to be perceived in that light. But
yeah, but you know, I'll tell you, that never goes away, no matter how big and cool you are, you know. It's interesting how much in this career, now again, I've only been doing it for 4 years, so I'm not near anybody else's 10 or 20 or whatever. But you know, I had made a post on social media about it today, just kind of looking back at the person I was 4 years ago and how much like that person wouldn't believe the shit that I've been to, and the rooms of people that I sat with and the friends that I've made. And you know, that person would be very, very impressed and excited to hear that. Meanwhile, like, I can't get Dan Aykroyd on my show to save my life, you know.
Oh my god.
I'd love to get Whitley Strieber on, you know, and I can't.
You know,
I've messaged him.
You know who I messaged? I'll tell you. I messaged Tom DeLonge like 2 weeks ago.
Tom DeLonge, yeah, that's another one. Yeah, that's another one. I mean, because here's the thing about it is that guess what? They're either gonna one of three things is gonna happen. They're gonna say no, they're gonna ignore you, or they're gonna say yes and they're gonna
Yep,
come on.
exactly. The worst thing that they can say is no. You know what I mean?
Right,
So
exactly. So I mean, you might as well, like I said, that feeling never goes away because I always feel like I look desperate and silly and terrible. I
well, I'm
still
glad
feel
I'm
that.
not the only one.
Yeah. I still feel that way. And I go up and, I go and I give lectures on stuff. Most of my lectures are standing room only. Everybody's there to come see me, talk about whatever. But I can't get Dan Aykroyd on, So
I would love to hear him on a podcast. I don't think I've ever heard him on a podcast or
I don't think
anything
so
like that.
either.
So
He's a weird guy. He says he had a Men in Black encounter, so I'd love to talk about everything that he knows,
yeah,
but
him, Tom DeLonge, and Aaron
DeLonge
Rodgers are
would be a
my
good one.
top three that I really want to be able to talk to. But
I want to get Jack Black on just because I feel like we would vibe really
oh
well.
my God, yes,
He's so fucking
yes,
fun, and I feel like
yes.
he would do it too, but
I bet he would too.
I've been too afraid to ask. And I should just ask. I should just do it.
You should.
I think he probably would do it.
I bet he would. He seems like the type that would he just would do anything for anybody at any
would just
time.
do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
He would just have to like just so happen to see my I think like that would be the only thing is that he either wouldn't see my message or he would do it. Those are the options there.
Yeah.
I just need to message him every little bit, like, "Hey, want to come on my show?" And eventually, he'll say yes. So
yeah, that's what. That was what I said with Tom DeLonge. I was like, first and foremost, I am a fan. I enjoy your music. And I'm not even sure if you're going to be able to see this because there are so many people that probably message you in every day of your life.
Yeah.
So, but I do have this podcast where I talk about this, and that, and I would love to talk to you about your UFO encounters and stuff like that. And because I've heard snippets of what people know about his stuff, and I'm just like, oh, really?
Yeah, he's big in the shit. Like
he started a whole organization about it,
Yeah, he's big into it, so he'd be a really good one to have on. Because I mean, you might as well just ask. And I've had some people that I've asked to come on the show, and I'm totally taken aback by what they expect as far as like payments and stuff go.
Really, I have not experienced that yet.
Right. I hadn't either, and I'll tell you who it was. I'll tell you who the fuck it was.
Okay.
So I had messaged the world's only bearded lady and wanted to have her on the show because my show's very much a variety show, right? We'll talk about anything and everything. That was weird. So hell yeah, I'll have a bearded woman on my show. That sounds sweet. So I message her and she messages me back and she's like, oh yeah, definitely. And then she's like, so what's the compensation like? And I'm like, compensation? I'm like, I don't know. I've never been asked this question. Like, what are you worth? And the thing about it is that I do my podcast. We're podcasting over Zoom here with yours. I don't even do that much. There's no video. Like all you got to do is show up. You don't even have to wear clothes or get yourself together or anything. It's just an audio recording. And anyway, she was like, well, I charge like $250 by the hour, and then every hour after that is such and such. I'm like, I'm not paying you $250 to come talk about your beard on my podcast. Are you fucking kidding me?
What the fuck?
I didn't say all that, but you know what? I will take something into consideration. She is the world's only bearded lady. She is a commodity, and good for her for knowing what her worth is. But
absolutely.
I'm still not going to pay you $250 to come talk to me for an hour. No, thank you.
That's hilarious. I've heard. So, my buddy.
Well, friends, I need you to take a second head on over to www.fineartmedium.com. Emily is a medium, a working medium at that. She does readings, and she's artsy. She does graphic design. So, if you're in the market for a logo, because maybe you're starting a business, maybe you're even starting a podcast, and your logo needs met, Emily is who you want to reach out to. I promise you, you won't be disappointed in her artwork. I also know that if you need a reading, past life regression, this medium, not only is she compassionate, she's extremely intelligent. She will get your needs met. You can go onto her website, you can see all of her reviews. I promise you, my friends, you won't be disappointed in this. So give her your time if you're in the need for it. She made a couple of my t-shirt designs, and we're working on a comic book. So if you have graphic design needs, check her out. As always, my friends, stay weird.
My buddy, I think it was Shane. I might be incorrect. So Shane, if this wasn't you, I apologize. He reached out to somebody who wrote a book. He didn't specify who, but he wanted to interview this person, and they wanted money to talk to him, and he's just like, okay, never mind. You know what I mean? Like he's like, I just want to I was just gonna help you, promote your book, but yeah, and he told me about that, and I was just like, again, if it was Shane, whoever it was, told me about it, and I was just like, fuck that shit.
Yeah, it happens.
I'm doing this podcast for free. Well, I'm not gonna pay somebody to have
right
to be a guest,
I'm not really making a lot on it. It's just it's definitely one of those things. It's very weird. Now, granted, I'm somebody that says that people should demand to get paid more than just exposure.
True.
I don't think that that's bad, but at the same time, if it's easy, like a podcast is very easy.
Yes.
If you don't even have to leave your house,
especially if you don't have to leave your house,
and all you're doing is having a conversation with somebody. I mean, you should probably just do those things. Like it's not going to hurt to do it. It could only potentially help.
Absolutely.
So, that's my thing. Now, if you're talking about like giving a talk somewhere or, just something bigger, right? Contributing artwork for something, I mean, of course, exposure is not enough in those cases. That actually takes effort.
For sure.
But something like this, I mean, this is not difficult, so that's just my take on it.
Did you pick out a name for your documentary and your book yet? Are they the same name, or are you going to call them something different?
That's a really good question. The documentary is called Sinking the Mothman, but the book has not been decided. I don't know if it will be the same as the documentary. I just haven't gotten there yet.
Okay. So what was the first step that you took to getting into the documentary?
Buying everything. Buying all the stuff that I needed. The equipment was it. I mean, essentially it started with the visits to Point Pleasant.
Okay.
And it just kind of grew from there. Because initially this was just going to be, I mean, I'll be honest, it was going to be a 20-minute YouTube video about the Mothman story in Point Pleasant. It was very easy. So it was just kind of visiting these places and getting a feel for them and kind of learning the history a little bit, and then you kind of start going down the rabbit holes. One of the first things that I did was I took to Facebook, um, because I had no social media presence at all. That's why I started the podcast, actually. Because what's the good in putting out a documentary if nobody knows who the fuck I am, right? So I had to get myself out there somehow and build social media, and that was like part of it.
Yep.
But one of the first things I did before I started building social media was I reached out to my Facebook friends, like, and these were all people, real life people I knew, my friends and family. Hey, has anybody ever seen the Mothman before? And I was very surprised that I had hit on it. I had one of my
Really?
old bosses, yeah, one of my old bosses says, I've seen it and my mom's seen it too. And I'm like, what, really? So she told me her encounter. Um, she had seen it. They lived in like a really rural area in Beaver Creek, Ohio. And so the house that they lived at was like backed up to a bunch of trees and stuff. She saw it walking home one day with her friend, and they saw it standing in the tree line, just standing there, staring at them. Had the big red eyes, the wings folded up on its back, and it just looked like some guy. um, so they went home, and then her mom had seen it not once but twice, actually two times. The mom had seen it walking down the street in that area, just casually strolling down the street. She said it just looked like same thing, a guy with wings floating on his back. She thought it was like a Halloween thing. She didn't know. Didn't really think anything of it. Well, she said one day she goes to her garage to leave. The car's in the garage. The garage is connected to the house, and the garage had been open. Usually they kept the garage, the door open. And she goes out there, and this thing is hanging from the rafters upside down with its wings covering it. And so she goes back in the house and is like, well, I guess I didn't need those milk and eggs that bad. And comes out a couple hours later, it's gone. And it was weird. It was a weird story, but she was like, her mom, I've never met her mom before. Like I knew Stephanie, my coworker. I knew her. I didn't know her mom. And her mom is like, do you know about Helltown? And I was like, what's this? What's Helltown? She was
Mm.
like, Helltown, Ohio. And I was like, that's a thing. And she starts kind of telling me about it, and then it kind of jogged my memory a little bit. It's a local thing. It's an abandoned town. Well, it's an abandoned town in Ohio, but it's not abandoned. The government kicked everybody out in the 70s. It's actually Boston, Ohio, but everybody calls it Helltown. There's tons and tons of lore and rumors and urban legends surrounding this weird fucking town. And it is weird. So, she's telling me about it, and then she's like, she just stops and she's like, you know what? I'm gonna invite you over. We're gonna have a barbecue. She invites me over for some barbecue. And she's like, and I'm gonna invite a friend. I'm like, okay, invite a friend.
Oh.
So we're all hanging out at the house, and there's a couple of people there. They got a big family. They know a lot of people. I didn't know who this friend was. It was just a normal, let's hang out and have barbecue. And at the end of the night, a lot of us are just kind of sitting around the living room. It's coffee time. She's got the coffee. And she comes out from the kitchen to the living room. She sits down in the chair. She just kind of, it's real quiet. Everybody's quiet. She just kind of takes a minute. And then she looks over at this older gentleman that's there. And she looks at him and goes, tell her about the thing. And he just, instantly his whole entire mood changed. But he looks at her and goes, what thing? But he knew what she was talking about.
Right.
And she's like, the thing. And he's like, okay. So after a couple minutes, of us kind of getting to know each other a little bit more than just tell her about your thing, he finally starts to tell me. He's like, okay. He's like, so here's the thing. Back in the 70s, I was a park ranger for the Cuyahoga Nature Reserve.
Oh shit.
So Helltown is a part. The reason why the government shut down and moved everybody out of Helltown was so that they could make that town a part of the Cuyahoga Nature Reserve. Okay. He said it had, everybody had just left. one of their big concerns was that the residents were pissed off that they had lost their homes, essentially their childhood homes. They're all gone. um and they were concerned about kids coming around and vandalizing, and obviously the townspeople coming around and vandalizing and starting fires and all this stuff. So they would patrol that area quite a bit. So he, went on a patrol with the town, and he says, it's eerie at night, but when you walk around there every single night, it's not that bad. It's just a town. And he kind of comes off the town and he starts like walking back into like the actual nature reserve parts. And while he's kind of getting out more in that area, he starts hearing a bunch of weird sounds, really weird sounds. He says it was mostly like a lot of kind of electrical static, and he said it was really interesting. But he started walking kind of towards it to figure out what's going on, and he came up to a fence, like a 12 foot tall fence in the middle of the woods that he had never seen before, and he didn't know where it was from. So he kind of follows the fence around to try to figure out, well, what is this? Where's the opening? And at one point in time in the fence, there's like a clearing that he can see through the fence itself and through the trees. And he goes, the only thing I can tell you is that whatever it was looked like Jeepers Creepers. And I'm like,
oh yeah.
Okay. All right. And he's like, there were multiple men in military garbs surrounding this thing that looked like Jeepers Creepers. And this thing was attacking them somehow, but he didn't know how exactly. He said it was an electrical attack. And what I think he was saying was more like it was a telekinetic type of thing. It was so weird. I'm like, well, how do you know they were being attacked? And he's like, I could tell. He's like, these men were, their faces were twisted with pain and they were writhing and they weren't really going after it. They couldn't really move. He left. And he left.
Yeah.
He never went
Yeah.
back to his job ever again. And this was the first significant encounter that I had received. And it was probably, like I said, we started this in September. This was like October, November. I mean, it was like right after, and it scared the
Wow.
shit out of me. I was like, oh my God, the government's involved and they know that I know, and I should know these things and I should stop. And, my family. I went to my best friend's house. I did the same girl actually that I saw Mothman at her house. I went to her house. We didn't smoke any weed this time. But like I made her like put her phone in the house, and then like we went and like left and like took a walk, like told her what happened because I was scared. I didn't know. And and I was like, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I want to do this. I don't think I want to know. That was too real for me because I watched this man tell me the story. And I mean, I didn't tell it as good as he will. But I mean, he was terrified. The man quit his job that day, left, and never went back.
Yeah.
He saw something, he saw something. And she just kind of looked at me and she's like, well, you don't have to. If you feel like, this is gonna put you in danger, you don't have to. And for whatever reason, I kept doing it. And I've told that story now multiple times, and I'm still here. So
Yeah.
so getting into this type of thing, especially as somebody who's not into this stuff initially, was fucking horrifying. I'll be honest with you. It was scary. So.
Yeah, I think being like more conspiratorial, like based for me has been a little bit easier when it comes to like hearing stuff like that where I'm like, oh, I'm not supposed to know this, but I'm like, but I do want to know this because
I'm curious.
if I know this, I have something against them or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I mean,
like,
yeah, it was scary. I was like, I'm gonna get murdered. Like
I bet
this is it. I'm gonna get murdered.
you
But like I
gotta
said,
you gotta start writing in your diaries and on your Facebook every day. I do not want to commit suicide.
That's what the podcast is for. It's collateral, it's proof, right? If I disappear and stop uploading, people know why.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. That's a
It's
good point.
documenting everything. But yeah, it was very intense. And I still don't know what to make of that story. I genuinely believe that he saw something. I would like to
I don't doubt it.
talk to him again. I haven't talked to him ever since that happened.
Yeah.
I would like to speak with him again now being who I am now and knowing the things that I know now, I didn't know how to
Yeah.
interview people at that time. You know, I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
So I would like to talk to him now and see, and maybe I can make that happen. I'd love if he would come on the document. I don't think he will. I don't think he'll come publicly with that story.
You don't think he'd even come on your podcast or anything like that?
I don't think so. I don't think he
No.
would. I don't
Well, I
think he would.
guess asking doesn't hurt, you know.
It doesn't. The worst he can do is either ignore me or say no.
Exactly. Exactly.
So maybe I'll do that.
Yeah. So before we wrap this up, I just wanted to let you know that I learned about a cryptid that I didn't know about, and I also want to make a documentary about it. And I have no idea how to make documentaries. So I don't even know how to like even start it. But I guess since the way you started is just by like putting it out there, asking for
Do it.
encounter stories and stuff, I guess that's a good way to start. So
Let's do it. It won't be
do you
the
have like,
same.
did you pay like a cameraman, or do
No.
you have somebody that, or are you filming it yourself?
I am. It's just me.
Oh, just you. So
It's just me. Yeah.
all
Yeah. It's
right.
just me filming it on an iPhone 11 Pro.
I have the same phone.
You know, I made that choice. So I do have I've got other equipment now too.
Yeah.
You know, since I've started, but I had a choice. I could either invest in a really badass camera or I could invest in a phone with a really badass camera. And I was actually inspired by the oh my God, what's that Disneyland horror movie that they filmed at Disneyland? Oh, I can't remember what it's called. Oh my God. It's a
Disneyland
horror
horror.
movie. Yeah, it's a horror movie that they filmed inside of Disneyland and they filmed it entirely on an iPhone. And it's not great, but you know, I was like, shit, if those assholes could do that, I could do that with a documentary. It's a documentary, you know, it doesn't have to
Yeah.
be cinematic. Which actually, you know, that's me talking shit, but like the iPhone seriously is like legit. Like you can film like legit shit on it. So I mean that's what I started with. I got an iPhone. I got a phone with a really good camera, and then I got other, you know, I've gotten other cameras since then, but I'm the camera person. You kind of just get your equipment as you go as well, while you're doing it. If you're making a documentary, it is mostly research. Filming is not difficult.
Right.
Filming's the easy part. You know, it doesn't
Right.
take up a lot of time. You can spend a weekend in anywhere that's, you know, topical for you and get B-roll. I mean, but you can get B-roll of just about anything. And this is just kind of in between your narration. It also depends on what you want it to look like. There's different types of documentaries, and that is going to change. It's going to change the entire process. And if the entire thing changes, it's fine. Like if it's not the same thing that you started with, it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to accept that. You have to accept that it has to feel good. And furthermore, don't be afraid to take your time. You know, you're making this product. Don't get too critical about it, because if you do, you'll never finish it. You're always going to be your own worst critic. But don't feel bad about taking the time that you feel this project needs to really come to the vision that you're expecting. So,
well, thank you.
That's my words of unsolicited advice. I guess you kind of asked, but
well, I'll tell you what exact cryptid it's
yes,
that I
I'm
want to do it
curious.
about. So it's the Spectre Moose. I don't know if you've
That's
ever
a
heard
very good one. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's a very
So,
good one. That's
and
fun.
the people that I've talked to about it, I'm like, if the worst thing that is gonna happen is gonna be a documentary about fucking moose. Like, because
Sure.
I can almost guarantee you, we at least going out there will see moose.
Yeah. Oh yeah. At least one somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
We know
for
that they
sure.
do exist for sure. You know.
Absolutely, and we know albino moose exist. So
You might get lucky and catch one. Yeah.
yeah, so I mean I've seen videos of albino moose where they're like as grandiose as the specter moose.
Yeah.
Not so much, but yeah, it would be, that's what I want to do the documentary on. So
I think that's a very good idea, and I think it is a very I'm not gonna say it's not a well-known cryptid. It's just not very talked about. Because it's very location specific, you know.
Yeah.
They don't have moose in Florida. So,
exactly.
you know, that makes sense. But
Yeah.
I think that is I think that's a good direction to go. And you know, if you want any tips and tricks of like where to start researching and trying to find, you know, you'll start going to places and talking to people you never imagined you would even talk to try to find a lead. And sometimes it's a dead wall, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's a whole new rabbit hole. So just let me know, and I'll help however I can.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, so I'd love to have you on again and we can talk about all this weird shit.
Sure.
Even more
Something
in
maybe
depth, especially
specific.
after your book and your documentary come out. I'd love to have you
Yeah.
back on if you're interested.
Absolutely.
But in the meantime, if you don't mind, just reiterating to the good people where they can find you. I don't know if I even asked you to share that. I think I just said, tell them about yourself.
That's okay.
Tell the good people where they can find you and find all your and find your podcast.
Absolutely. So again, I'm Ashley Hilt. You can find me on Facebook under the same name. I'm the one with the red hair. You can also find me on X, Twitter, X, whatever you call it now, and Instagram at it's Ashers with a Z. And you can listen to on Wednesdays, We Talk Weird anywhere you listen to podcasts. It's the only thing that comes up when you Google it. So there's no excuses not to find it.
Nice, nice. The problem is when you look up mine, it comes up with "We Are the Weird Ones," and I'm like, wait the fuck a
Oh,
second.
no.
And that one's just a comedic podcast. It's not even covering like the weird shit that
Oh,
I talk
geez.
about. But it's okay. It's fine.
Are they weird? Have you listened to them?
No, I haven't. I
You should
should.
invite them on. Yeah.
I should. That'd be interesting
Yeah.
because they're super popular apparently.
I mean, just gotta ask.
Yeah, that's right. You are so correct. But with that, that is the show, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it, and please go check out Ashley's podcast. And check out her documentary and her book when it comes out. Both of them, not just one. Just do both. Just do me a favor and check them both out. So if you want to be featured on the show, it's where the weird ones are at gmail.com. You get me on Facebook, same name, where the weird ones are. Instagram, where / the weird ones are. That's the only one that's different. And then if you want merch like this cool ass sweater, it's etsy.com/shop/where the weird ones are. Also leave a like, share, subscribe, a review, some stars. I don't even care if it's like 2, just not a 1. I mean 2 is better than 1. But with that being said, question everything and stay weird.
This concludes our broadcast day. Click.
Because in the end, none of us have very long on this earth. Life is fleeting. And if you're ever distressed, cast your eyes to the summer sky, when the stars are strung across the velvety night, and when a shooting star streaks through the blackness, turning night into day. Make a wish.